Once upon a time, in a land where pixies sprinkled their golden dust across rolling emerald hills, there lived a king and a queen who ruled not through pride or fear, but through love. The king was wise and bold like the sun, while the queen was calm and mysterious as the moon. Despite their royal rank and grandeur, they were humble souls who opened their hearts and home to all. They removed their shining crowns often, laughing with farmers, listening to merchants, and sharing bread with children. To them, every smile was a treasure, every story worth hearing. Under their care, the kingdom thrived. Flowers bloomed brighter, and every dawn carried the sound of joy. Yet when night descended and stars filled the sky, the castle grew still. The king would retreat to his study, and the queen would wander alone beneath the moon, finding peace in solitude. One beautiful summer night, while the castle slept under the soft hum of crickets, the queen slipped quietly from her chambers. Barefoot, she walked through marble halls and down empty corridors, the moonlight guiding her through tall windows like a loyal friend. Outside, the night air was warm and heavy with the scent of jasmine. Drawn by a gentle whisper of wind, she wandered toward the lake beyond the palace gardens, a crystal mirror under an indigo sky. Her long white gown flowed behind her like a river of light, her hair shimmering like woven silk. A weeping willow leaned over the lake's edge, its branches caressing the water, as though trying to lull it to sleep. The queen sat beneath it, gazing into the glassy surface. The reflection of her face rippled with every passing breeze, and she smiled softly until the water shifted, revealing not her reflection, but that of a young man. His eyes were kind and knowing, yet he was a stranger. Before she could breathe, a bright star streaked across the heavens and fell straight toward the lake, landing upon the young man's reflected forehead with a burst of silvery light. The queen gasped and looked up, but the star had vanished, and only moonlight danced on the ripples. A cool wind brushed her face, her eyelids grew heavy, and beneath the willow's shelter she drifted into sleep, surrounded by the gentle hum of the night. When dawn arrived, she awoke beneath a sky washed with gold. Though she remembered little, one image lingered, the falling star and the face in the water. She returned to the castle with the scent of jasmine still clinging to her gown. Weeks passed, and soon joyful whispers filled the palace. The queen was with child. The people rejoiced, and when 9 months had passed, the kingdom celebrated the birth of a prince. His name was Adrian, and upon his tiny forehead shone a small glowing star, bright and pure as the one the queen had seen fall from the heavens. The land rejoiced for 7 days, with feasts, songs, and blessings from fairies who fluttered down from the hills. But the queen knew, from the very moment she held him, that her son was destined for something greater than royalty. Prince Adrian grew faster and stronger than other children. By the time he could walk, he was already curious about the world around him. He listened more than he spoke, helped the poor, comforted the sick, and laughed with the lonely. The star on his forehead glowed brightest whenever he showed kindness. The people called him the Star Child, and they adored him as deeply as they loved his parents. But even as he grew into a young man, bold, clever, and kind, Adrian's heart longed for adventure. He often stood atop the castle walls, gazing at the distant mountains and wondering what lay beyond. On his 20th birthday, with his parents' blessing, he decided to see the world for himself. The king embraced him proudly, and the queen whispered, "Take your time. My son, the world is wide and full of wonder, carrying only a small bag." His flute and courage in his heart, Adrian set out at sunrise. The cheers of the people echoed behind him as he crossed the city gates and stepped into the great unknown. He wandered through forests alive with birdsong, crossed rivers that sparkled like crystal, and climbed hills where the clouds brushed his shoulders. Everywhere he went he played his flute, a simple wooden instrument whose sweet melodies filled the air with peace. Rivers seemed to slow their current to listen. Even the wind paused to hear his song. One day, while crossing a burning plain, Adrian noticed a small mosquito struggling in the heat. Its wings trembled helplessly, its tiny body too weak to fly. Without hesitation, Adrian cupped it gently in his hand and carried it for miles until he reached a lush green forest. There, by a cool stream, he placed it on a leaf. The little creature rested, then buzzed its wings and landed on his nose. "Thank you, kind prince," it said in a tiny voice. "Someday I will repay your kindness." Adrian smiled softly, unaware that this small act of compassion would one day change his fate. Days later, the prince came upon a forest clearing glowing with moonlight. In its center stood a small thatched house surrounded by flowers that shimmered even at night. Tiny pixies flitted between the blossoms, gathering golden pollen into their baskets, laughing like bells in the dark. On the porch sat a young woman in a white gown, a crown of daisies in her hair, and a soft light shining from a star on her forehead. "Welcome," she said gently, her voice as pure as the wind. "I'm Anna." Adrian felt his heart flutter. They spoke through the night, discovering in each other a kindred soul. But when she spoke of her childhood companion, a magical horse that had once flown to the heavens and never returned, sadness clouded her eyes. Moved by her pain, Adrian vowed to find it for her. Guided by Anna's words, he traveled to the ocean's edge, where waves kissed the sand beneath a sky of endless stars. There stood a moss-covered hut, home to an old woman whose eyes glimmered like forgotten galaxies. She welcomed Adrian and listened to his story, then said softly, "I can help you. But be warned, my horses graze on the stars. Their hearts belong to the wind." She led him to her stables and opened the gates. 7 magnificent black horses, wings vast as thunderclouds, burst forth into the night sky, scattering silver light over the ocean. Adrian lay on the sand, watching them feed upon constellations until sleep claimed him. When morning came, the horses were gone. The beach was empty, and despair filled the prince's heart. But then a hum rose in the air, 1,000 tiny wings beating in unison. A glowing swarm of mosquitoes swirled above the horizon, herding the 7 star horses back toward the stable. Among the buzzing, Adrian heard a familiar voice whisper, "Your kindness returns to you, my friend." Smiling, he looked up just as an 8th horse emerged from the light, a silver-white stallion with gentle eyes that mirrored Anna's. The old woman smiled knowingly. "That one," she said, "is not mine." Adrian thanked her deeply, promising to return her kindness one day. Then he climbed onto the shining creature's back. With a powerful leap, the horse's wings unfurled, and together they soared over the ocean, the rising sun painting the sky in fire and gold. They flew over forests and rivers until they reached Anna's home. She stood among her blue forget-me-nots, and when she saw her long-lost companion, tears of joy filled her eyes. The horse galloped to her and nuzzled its face against her hands. The world seemed to hold its breath in that moment, the forest silent, the pixies hovering still. From that day on, Prince Adrian and Anna often rode the silver horse together. They sprinkled pixie dust across the kingdom, and crops grew taller, fruits ripened faster, and joy filled every heart. The people cheered for the star-marked prince and the moon-blessed maiden. Each night, they returned to the lake beneath the old willow tree, watching as their horse soared above the clouds, grazing once again upon the stars. And if you look closely on quiet nights, when the moon is bright and the air smells of jasmine, you can still see that winged creature galloping across the heavens, a shining reminder that kindness, once given, always finds its way home.